Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, we do have a quorum. Amber and Benjamin are both attending via Zoom. Amber is under the weather, so she has an excused Zoom, and Benjamin was, it was noticed that he was going to be attending the meeting from 360 Furman Street in the conference room 6 south in Brooklyn Heights. So those are both allowed in open meetings law. So we do have a full quorum. The three of us at the table will be reading the resolutions, but we will all vote on them. So before we get started, is there any public comment on just the resolutions that we're going to read, not the public hearings that will come later? Anyone online? Do not see anything. All right, so we'll get started. Albert, would you like to kick us off?
Whereas Beach Glass Properties LLC, care of Jack Morgani, 21 Tarkettle Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to remove from existing dockage facility existing 5x19 and 6x20 floats and associated pilings, install one 6-foot by 20-foot float with 2.7 times 4.3 steps atop float, secured by two 10-inch diameter pilings adjacent to the existing fixed dock to remain, as depicted on the project plan prepared by EN Consultants, last dated November 18, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:04 p.m. prevailing time on the 17th day of March, 2025, in the Shelter Island Town Hall for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Whereas Clifford Clark, on behalf of South Ferry Inc., 135 South Ferry Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a wetlands and site plan review application to construct onto an existing two-story office building, a 547 square foot, two-story addition with 214 square feet of ADA compliant access platforms and ramps, basement entrance and AC units located 55 feet from the wetlands, and a 5-foot by 6.2 foot covered entry located 61 feet from the wetlands. Construct an 86 square foot ADA compliant access ramp to existing covered entry located 37 feet from the wetlands. Remove existing conventional septic system and install a new IA sanitary system consisting of a hydroaction OWTS located 69 feet from the wetlands, removing existing 30 square foot basement entrance and a 303 square foot asphalt surface from the wetlands regulated area to install stormwater drainage system, use approximately 471 cubic yards of clean fill to be trucked in from an upland source to backfill proposed septic and drainage system, and establish up to 19-foot wide, approximately 949 square foot expansion of existing vegetated wetlands buffer in place of existing lawn to be planted with Cape American beach grass, maintaining a 4-foot wide path to existing steps, all as depicted on the site plan prepared by F. Michael Hemmer, LSPC, last dated November 15th, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 29-7 and 109 of the Shelter Island Town Code, a public hearing shall be held for a concurrent review at 6:06 p.m. prevailing time on the 7th day of April, 2025, in the Shelter Island Town Hall for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed application. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whereas a wetlands application was submitted on behalf of Mark Lumley on July 10th, 2024, seeking a permit to demolish an existing shed, fence, bocce court located on their closest point 44.7 feet from the wetlands, demolish 75 feet of second floor area located greater than 61 feet from the wetlands, construct a 56 square foot second floor addition located 68.8 feet from the wetlands, construct 179 square feet second floor addition located greater than 75 feet from the wetlands to demolish approximately 8 square feet of second floor area located greater than 75 feet from the wetlands, demolish and reconstruct 620 square feet of deck located 49.2 feet from the wetlands, convert an existing second floor of the detached garage to the living floor area located greater than 100 feet from the wetlands, modify the existing detached roof line in order to create a second floor deck located greater than 100 feet from the wetlands, abandon the existing sanitary system by pumping the system clean, followed by removing the system and backfilling the remaining excavated area with clean, compatible sand in accordance with Suffolk County Department of Health Services requirements located 99 feet from the wetlands, install a new innovative on-site wastewater treatment system consisting of 1 treatment tank and 80 lineal feet of distribution trenches with room for 50% future expansion in accordance with Suffolk County Department of Health requirements located at their closest point 100 feet from the wetlands, a residential property fronting on West Neck Creek and containing town and state regulated tidal wetlands, the town of Shelter Island, Suffolk County of New York. In accordance with 8 Margaret Drive site plan prepared by Matthew Benjamin Sherman dated July 3rd, 2024. Well, this is a long one here, huh? What, do I need to repeat all these pages here? This is a very, very long sanitary. I'll skim part of it. Prepared a Lumley sanitary plan prepared by Matthew Benjamin Sherman dated August 24th, 2024. Whereas the subject premises contains 45,000 square feet and is located on the north side of Margaret's Drive, partially within the FEMA flood zone, elevation 6 feet, as well as partially seaward of the limit on the modern wave action. Whereas the property plans call for minor additions to the second floor of the existing dwelling without expansion of the footprint, as well as conversion of the second floor of the detached garage located greater than 100 feet from the wetland to inhabitable floor space. The applicant is seeking to demolish and reconstruct the existing deck in place in order to mitigate the proposed addition. The applicant is proposing to upgrade the sanitary system to a new innovative on-site wastewater treatment system, as well as a 10 to 12 foot non-turf buffer. Whereas the notice of disapproval was issued on June 28, 2024, and whereas the applicant received a permit from the DEC on October 25th, 23, whereas pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, the project is a type 2 action, whereas,
That's wrong.
Keep going, please.
okay, whereas on February 24th, 2025, there was a public hearing held on the subject application where the public comments were received and taken under consideration. Whereas the subject applicant was referred to the town's environmental analyst, Conservation Advisory Council, and the Planning Board. The report where therefore was issued and dated on October 10th of 2024, September 20th of 2024, and November 12th of 24, and respectively, and taken into consideration. Where the town board has reviewed the application with regard to the standards of review enumerated by Town Code Section 29-5, and now therefore be resolved that the town board finds the project meets the standard Town Code of 29-5 as proposed. The project will not create a risk of impairing the function and the value of the wetland and the buffer. Diminish any wetland in size unless the approving authority finds that the proposed activity is water dependent or requires access to the wetland or as a central element of its basic function and will, in the minimum possible alteration or impairment of the wetland, negatively impact the quality and the quantity of the groundwater, create a net increase in the risk of runoff, and resolve that the town board further finds that there is no practical alternatives which allow for the project to be constructed outside the regulated area, and the applicant will voluntarily implement within 3 months of the issuance of a permit adequate mitigation measures that will contribute to the protection and enhancement of the wetlands and the wetland benefits. Be it resolved, the town board approves the issuance of a wetlands permit perform the proposed demolition, construction, and installation on 8 Margaret's Drive in Shelter Island, Suffolk County Tax Map number 700-018-02-037, as shown on 8 Margaret Drive site plan, prepared by Matthew Benjamin Sherman, dated July 3rd, 2024, on pages, and we got a whole list of pages here, which I'm going to pass by, and it was prepared by Jared London, dated July 1st, 2024, and Lumley Sanitary Plan, prepared by Matthew Benjamin Sherman, dated August 24th, 2024, subject to the following conditions. Demolition and reconstruction of the existing dwelling is prohibited. Prior to the commencement of construction, a continuous line wired back silting screening shall be installed in a trench to a depth of 6 inches. The screen shall be maintained, repaired, and replaced as often as necessary to ensure the function until all disturbed areas are permanently vegetated. 3, unless otherwise authorized, modifications of the existing natural grade through the deposit of fill, site regrading, excavation is prohibited other than for the inspection of the IA septic system. Any work and disturbance and storage of construction materials shall be confined to the area outside the adjacent regulated area, 100 foot from the wetlands. 5, leaders and gutters shall be installed and piped into dry wells as shown on the sanitary system permit issued by the Department of Health Services on 2/9/24. 20-foot wide vegetative buffer shall be restored with variable native vegetation characteristic of the area, with additional wooded vegetation such as bayberry and low-lying brush blueberry in the landward portion of the required buffer. 7, all areas of soil disturbance resulting from the project shall be revegetated immediately upon completion of the project within 2 days of the final grading, or by the expiration date of this permit, whichever is first. If the vegetated buffer is, if revegetation is practical due to the time of the year, then the final vegetation shall be performed as soon as the weather conditions permit. 8, prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, an application for the final wetland inspection shall be filed. And 9, such additional vegetative shall be planted and such that the restoration measures shall be implemented and may be required by the town board or its designee in the event of, upon final inspection. It is deemed necessary to achieve the goal of establishing a healthy cover of native vegetation within the designated areas. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did it.
Motion passes.
Whereas a wetlands application was submitted on behalf of the Ava Gayer Shelter Island Trust, care of Aisha Gayer, on September 4, 2024, seeking a permit to legalize the demolition and reconstruction of 1,638 square feet of partially elevated deck and steps located at its closest point 44.6 feet from wetlands at residentially developed property having frontage on Gardeners Bay and containing town and state regulated tidal and brackish wetlands in the town of Shelter Island, Suffolk County, New York, in accordance with the as-built site plan drawing number C1 prepared by Matthew Sherman dated April 29, 2024. Whereas the subject premises contains 96,721 square feet, 2.2 acres located on the north side of Ram Island Drive, partially within the FEMA flood zone at elevation 14 and elevation 10 and 11, and is partially seaward of the coastal erosion hazard area. Whereas the applicant seeks post-work wetlands approval for reconstruction of existing deck in same location with 715 square feet in the vegetative buffer and 923 square feet in the adjacent regulated area. The original deck of 4,145 square feet lying inside and outside the regulated area was constructed prior to 2001 Town Wetlands Code. The completed deck will have an expansion and be the same 4,150 square feet. Whereas a notice of disapproval was issued on July 12, 2024, whereas the applicant has received a permit from the DEC number 1-4732-0190/0002 dated April 22, 1998. The letter states that all proposed work above the 10-foot front contour on the topographic map by John Rayner, PR dated July 16, 1997, and last revised March 20, 98, is not within New York State DEC tidal wetlands jurisdiction. Whereas pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, the project is a Type 2 action. Whereas on January 27, 2025, there was a public hearing held on the subject application where public comments were received and taken under consideration. Whereas the subject application was referred to the town's environmental analyst, the Conservation Advisory Council, and the Planning Board, and reports therefrom were issued dated December 2nd, 2024, December 6th, 24, and December 12th, 2024, and respectively, and taken into consideration. Whereas the town board has reviewed the application with regard to the standards of review enumerated in Town Code Section 129-5, and therefore be it resolved that the town board finds that the project meets the standards enumerated in Town Code Section 129-5, as the proposed work will not create a risk of impairing the function and value of the wetland and buffer, diminish any wetland in size unless the approving authority finds that the proposed activity is water dependent or requires access to the wetland as a central element of its basic function, and will result in the minimum possible alteration or impairment of the wetland, negatively impact the quantity and quality of groundwater, create a net increase in the risk of runoff, and resolve that the town board further finds that there are no practicable alternatives which allow the project to be constructed outside the regulated area, and the applicant will voluntarily implement within 3 months of the issuance of the permit adequate mitigation measures that will contribute to the protection and enhancement of wetlands and wetlands benefits. Resolved that the town board hereby approves the issuance of a wetlands permit to perform the proposed demolition and construction at 167 Ram Island Drive, Shelter Island, Suffolk County Tax Map 700-010-01-019, as shown as on the as-built site plan drawing C1 prepared by Matthew Benjamin Sherman, dated April 29, 2024, subject to the following conditions. A 20-foot wide buffer of native vegetation shall be planted on the east side of the premises, upland of the boulder wall between Gardner's Bay and the residence to mitigate runoff. The existing disturbed portions of the vegetative buffer shall be restored to native vegetation in accordance with the as-built site plan prepared by Matthew Sherman, dated April 29, 2024. Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, an application for a final wetlands inspection shall be filed. Such additional native vegetation shall be planted, and such other restoration measures shall be implemented as may be required by the town board or its designee in the event upon final inspection. It is deemed necessary to achieve the goal of establishing a contiguous, healthy cover of native vegetation within the designated areas. Number 5, the deck shall be brought to New York State Building Code standards. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We do not have a resolution for March. That will be moved to the next board meeting. Whereas the New York State Household Hazardous Waste, HW, State Assistance Program has made funds available to reimburse the cost of municipal household hazardous waste collection programs pursuant to 6 NYCRR Subpart 362-4. And whereas the HHW State Assistance Program allowable costs include reasonable cost for municipal HHW collection and storage, and provides up to 50% funding for eligible project costs. And whereas the town incurred expenses of $29,340.55 in HHW collection fees in calendar year of 2024, with 50% state share totaling $14,507.78. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby authorizes the grant submission and authorizes the supervisor or her designee to execute any and all documents pertaining to the New York State Household Hazardous Waste State Assistance Program for reimbursement of eligible expenses incurred for the calendar year of 2024 HHW program. Be it further resolved that the DPW superintendent is appointed to serve as project manager for the implementation of this grant. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Should be easy for me. Okay. Be it resolved, the town board adopts the following Artist Lane Preserve Stewardship Management Plan. This is introduction. In 2022, the town of Shelter Island and Suffolk County jointly purchased 20.1 acres, that's 5 lots, of waterside parcels facing West Neck Creek from Carla White Frey-Vogel, Burton H. White, Grace White Borelli, George C. and Elizabeth White, and the White 456 LLC in 2022. The main entrance to the preserve with the interior designated parking area is located off of South Menantic Avenue. Access to parking area to 3 lots, lots 4, 5, and 6, Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 700-22-2, 5.11 and 5.12 and 5.13 is provided by an easement on a dirt road on a walking trail through Reserve Area A. The remaining 2 lots, 8 and 9, Suffolk County Tax Map number 700-22-2, 5.4 and 5.15 are adjacent to each other. Lot 8 is located off of South Menantic Road. Lot 9 is located off of Simpson Road. Both lots 8 and 9 will have grass path openings to the road marked with a small sign marked preserve. The access to lots 8 and 9 will be provided by these grass path openings. The main entrance will be marked with signage clearly indicating the name Artist Lane Preserve. A gravel road will lead to a vehicle parking area. No vehicle traffic beyond this parking area is allowed except for emergency vehicles. A kiosk with a map will be provided at the parking area site showing the allowable public walking path trails. No walking is permitted beyond the private property signs. An easement trail will be marked with green, round metal arrows leading to three lots 4, 5, and 6 of the preserve overlooking West Neck Creek. A small bench will be placed at the shoreline edge of Lot 5. Signs reading "Stay on Trail" will be posted and indicated on the preserve boundaries. The property, originally 50 acres, was subdivided. The town of Shelter Island in Suffolk County acquired 20.1 acres of this land, includes 5 lots. The preserve will be used for passive recreation, as wildlife refuge. The property will be called Artist Lane Preserve and will be so called on all town maps and descriptive material. The town has an easement for the use of the walking trail named Pallet Path from the designated parking area to lots 4, 5, and 6. Hikers must stay on the path until reaching the access lots 5.1 and 5.2 and 5.3, which are lots 4, 5, and 6. Boundary markers will be posted. No vehicle traffic will be allowed past the designated parking area inside the preserve. Improvements. The property is unimproved in its natural state as a wildlife refuge. The property has been previously cleared of underbrush, fallen trees, so easily accessible walking paths already exist. There will be no improvements on the property. The property shall be kept this way. No buildings or structures will be allowed. Water test wells that exist on the property may be used for water testing only and for no other purpose. The management. The property needs little maintenance other than mowing certain paths, maintaining the parking area of approximately 50 by 25 feet along the gravel road of the entrance on South Menantic Road. The maintenance budget will be adopted annually and submitted to the town board for approval. Otherwise, the property will be left in its current state to serve as open space, a habitat for wildlife, and for water recharge. Trail mowing and removal of invasive plants will be performed as required by town employees or contract vendors or even volunteer groups. Public access and signage. Access to lots 4, 5, and 6, which is 5.11, 5.12, and 5.13 will be provided, and the preserve sign will be placed at the main entrance off the South Menantic Road. Access to lots 8 and 9 will be provided a small preservation sign, which will be placed at the entrance on South Menantic and on Simpson Road respectively. Signage within the preserve will indicate where the preserve and private property begins and ends. No vehicle traffic beyond parking area will be permitted except for emergency vehicles. Public access to the preserve is for hiking and enjoyment of nature, permitted during the daylight hours only. Measures to protect ecology. The town will manage the preserve to protect the ecology of the preserve. Hauling of fallen trees will be permitted by town permission and is restricted to the lots 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. Otherwise, no logging is allowed on the property. Use of pesticides, chemicals that might harm wildlife is prohibited. No hunting is allowed unless permitted by the town deer management program. No hunting on private homeowner association property will be permitted at any time. The rules and regulations of the town deer management program are attached hereto and incorporated by reference. Recreational hunting will be permitted from November 1st to January 31st only. Archery only. culling by selected enrollees as permitted by the Deer Management Program will be permitted from February 1st to March 31st only, archery only. The use of firearms on the property is prohibited at all times. Care should be taken at various times of the year when turtles are active. No fires will be permitted on the property at any time. Dogs will be leashed at all times and disposable bags used. The Community Preservation Fund Advisory Board will include an annual report to the Town Board of expenditures for the community preservation for the stewardship of this property. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whereas Alfred Loretto 2 Brander Parkway has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to maintenance dredge approximately 23 feet by 39 feet, private boat basin, and approximately 15 feet by 20 feet, shoaling on east side of bulkhead to 4 feet below mean low water, and approximately 100 cubic yards of sand silt to be taken to an approved upland site as per approved DEC permit number 1-4732-00353. And whereas a public hearing was held on the 27th day of January 2025 for all persons to be heard in favor of or opposition to, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned dredging work. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be it resolved that Trish Gallagher is hereby appointed to serve as a member to the Health and Wellness Committee for a term to expire on January 6th of 2030. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Be it resolved that Lindsay Purcell is hereby appointed to serve as a cook for the Senior Center Nutritional Program at an annual salary rate of $47,700 retroactive to February 10th of 2025 for 30 hours per week with a probationary period of 26 weeks. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that Leslie Pascaud is hereby appointed to serve as a volunteer for the Recreation Department as meditation instructor for the year 2025, effective February 1, 2025. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that William Garrity is hereby appointed to serve as chairman to the Waterways Management Advisory Committee for a term to expire on February 1st of 2026. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whereas the term of Albert Dixon as member of the Licensing Review Board expired on March 11th, 2024, and whereas Albert Dixon has expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Albert Dixon is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the Licensing Review Board for the term to expire on June 27th, 2028. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Whereas a vacancy exists on the Licensing Review Board, and whereas the town board has advertised for and interviewed applicants, now therefore be it resolved that Peter Reich is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the Licensing Review Board for a term to expire on June 27, 2027. So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Whereas a vacancy exists on the Licensing Review Board, and whereas the town board has advertised for and interviewed applicants, now therefore be it resolved that Paul Shepard is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the License Review Board for a term to expire on June 27th, 2029. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whereas the vacancy exists on this Ferry Study Group, and whereas the town board has advertised for and interviewed applicants, now therefore be it resolved that Arthur Williams is hereby appointed to serve as a member on the Ferry Study Group for a term to expire January 29, 2027. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Whereas a vacancy exists on the planning board, and whereas the town board has advertised for and interviewed applicants, now therefore be it resolved that Sean Davy is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the planning board for a term to expire on December 31, 2029. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Whereas pursuant to Town Law, Section 64-E12, the town board must perform an annual audit of the Community Preservation Fund. And whereas the town board is desirous of performing an audit for the year of 2024, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby retains the auditing firm of Craig Fitzsimmons and Meyer LLP to perform an audit of the Community Preservation Fund for the year of 2024 for a fee of $11,750. Now therefore be it further resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to sign any and all documents in connection therewith. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be it resolved, the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to sign any and all documents in connection with the agreement between the town of Shelter Island and Suffolk County Probation Department for the DWI enforcement with a contract term of 1/1/2025. With a contract term of through 12/31/2025. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to sign any and all documents in connection with the agreement between the town of Shelter Island and Perillo Hill LLP to serve as attorney to the zoning board. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Discussion?
Yep.
Is that's a temporary assignment?
No, that would just be their annual appointment.
He's currently serving as interim, and now we're making it more permanent.
He's currently interim.
Yes.
Let's keep him as interim for now.
Well, we can't have them interim forever, and the zoning board has requested them as their attorney.
I know that. I'd like to keep him as interim. You know, until we have a full-time town attorney, which may influence
Well, the request,
ongoing.
the request of the zoning board was that they have an attorney independent of the town attorney, because it seemed to be a conflict to have the town attorney drafting legislation that then they would give guidance to the zoning board on, when the zoning board's entire purpose is to get relief from the legislation that's been drafted. So it seemed like a little bit of a conflict having the town attorney act as the zoning board attorney.
I would still request that we keep him on an interim basis.
Benjamin?
I was just gonna say, the suggestion is not to make the new town attorney, whenever we have one, be the zoning board attorney, but the new town attorney, he or she will be overseeing all of our legal matters, and you might want to wait till that person's in place before you make this permanent, and you want to do it with their blessing. But I think that's where this is going. Am I wrong? Albert?
Yeah, yes, yeah. To keep him on an interim basis. That's the gist of it, Ben, what you're saying?
Yeah, until the new town attorney is in place.
Yes,
and then the
that's
town
all.
attorney
Just
can
keep things
bless-
open right now.
We had the town attorney was working with the zoning all along until just recently, correct? Isn't that how that worked?
Yes,
Okay. And even in this type of an appointment is really, the attorney will serve at the will of the board, I'm assuming, correct? There is no contract per se. There's no time frame and whatever, okay? So I think we're talking about the same thing, and I think at the moment, I think it would be good to see, because we're gonna see other, as we're fulfilling the position of the town attorney, we're liable to see some other opportunities that may change, okay? But I think that Timothy Hill has done a good job, and there's no reason why he shouldn't continue as an
Right.
interim, okay? That's how I would feel about it.
yeah. So I think we keep this on an interim basis, so I'm opposed to this resolution.
Our current interim attorney suggested that we separate the functions.
We're not suggesting that they're combined, again. Can we modify the language here and just say that Hill will continue as interim town attorney?
Well, this is just for the
It's
zoning board, not for the town
There's only the-
attorney role.
I mean, sorry, zoning, board, sorry, continue as an interim zoning board attorney.
Well, then there's no need for the resolution.
Correct.
Okay, let's drop it then.
Well, let's vote on it.
Right,
Okay,
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
nay,
They-
Okay, so 3-2, motion is not approved. Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to sign any and all documents in connection with the agreement between the town of Shelter Island and Richard Whalen to serve as attorney to the planning board. So moved.
Second,
Discussion. I do not believe that Richard is the appropriate candidate for this job. Not that he's not qualified, he is qualified, but we had equally qualified candidates who were less expensive and who did not have a perceived conflict of interest because they haven't worked with other homeowners associations in the past.
I concur with that.
okay,
And I expressed this to Richard when I spoke to him. So,
and Richard, okay, comes with probably the best background in terms of land use, having been experienced in the planning boards in different locations, okay? His credentials are impeccable, okay? And I think it's a right choice. And I think we're very lucky to have someone like that to come forward. And he actually, I think he's an excellent choice, okay?
I agree.
I'm not disparaging his credentials, but I also think that there was another candidate who had equally good credentials, less expensive, and we were criticized when we hired Stephen Kiley for having a past relationship with an entity on Shelter Island, and I foresee that we're going to get criticized in this instance as well.
I agree.
I mean, that may be possible, but they're not apples and apples. Number one, Richard Whalen's qualifications are far superior to anybody we talked to. And number two, the conflict that the board was criticized for with Stephen Kiley was a much deeper relationship than the one that Richard Whalen had. He had a minor advisory. He didn't represent them. He was really just advising them, and it was a short term, and it was 2 years ago. So they're just not apples and apples.
So let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye.
Nay.
Thanks, nay. Opposed?
Yeah, I was like, Meg, did you change your mind?
No, it takes a lot to do that. Gordon, you're up.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to sign any and all documents in connection with an agreement between the town of Shelter Island and Richard, I read this, didn't
Yes.
I? Okay.
Did you read this? My turn. Whereas pursuant to Town Law Section 118-2, the town board is authorized to approve payments in advance of audit for public utility services, postage, freight, and express charges. And whereas such pre-audit payments are necessary for the efficient operation of town services, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adopted the procedure for making such payments in advance of audit, ensuring proper accounting and oversight. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Be resolved that the petty cash account is hereby established for the Highway Department in the amount of $100. So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Whereas the town has received $78,439 from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Municipal Waste Reduction and Recycling Program pursuant to a grant number DEC 01C01917GG 3350000, which was submitted to seek the reimbursement for the town's purchase of a Colbert excavator SK 2101 C-9, and whereas the excavator is used to assist the town solid waste facility improvement materials management, specifically converting yard waste into useful product, and whereas the purchase of the excavator was funded by the Highway Capital Reserve Fund, now therefore be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $78,439 received from the New York State DEC be deposited back into the Highway Capital Reserve Fund. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be resolved that the supervisor hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $17,100 to the 2024 A1120 revenue account received from Suffolk County for the annual revenue sharing payment. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $30 from the Association of Towns of New York to the 2024 B8012.4988 Zoning Board of Appeals Association of Towns Training Expense Account. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be it resolved, the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit $645 from the Association of Towns of New York to the following 2024 account: $425 to the A1420.492 attorney training, $110 to B3620.483 Building Department Association of Towns, and $210 to the B8010.483 Zoning Department Association of Towns. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $400 from Buzz Chu Chevrolet Cadillac to the 2024 A1490.200 Public Works Equipment Expense Account for a refund for an overpayment on a purchase of a 2024 Chevrolet Colorado. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $6,600 from the Shelter Island Ambulance Foundation, Inc. to the Ambulance Travel and Meetings General Ledger Account, A4540.493, for the reimbursement of EMS volunteers mileage to EMS calls for the year of 2024. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Be it resolved, the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $6,839.51 from the Shelter Island Ambulance Fund to the 2024 A4540.200 Ambulance Equipment General Ledger Account for reimbursement of the ambulance cot purchase from Stryker Sales LLC. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $300 from the County of Suffolk to the Police Department General Ledger Account A3120.457 for 2024 for reimbursement of towing of a vehicle seized in auction by Suffolk County. So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $45.10 from Quill to the 2024 A1110.484 Justice Court Office and Miscellaneous Expense Account for a refund on a purchase of office supplies.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be it resolved, the following 2025 budget transfers are hereby approved. $991 from the B8030.482 WAC, communications to B8030.485 WAC, water level monitoring to cover the shortfall in the USGS grant contract. $8,937.50 from the A1420.100 town attorney account salary to A1010.497 town board professional services, and $1,787.50 from the A1420.100 town attorney to A1010.480 Board of Ethics Professional Services to cover the interim town attorney costs. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be it resolved that the following 2025 budget modifications are hereby approved. $894.96 increase to the 2025 A2680 insurance recovery revenue account to be funded by the reimbursement check from NYMAR for claim number TSHI-2025-001-001, and an $894.96 increase to the 2025 A3120.400 police maintenance account, and $141.23 increase to the 2025 A2680 insurance recovery revenue account to be funded by the reimbursement check from NYMAR for claim number TSHI-2025-001-001, and a $141.23 increase to the 2025 A3120.400 police maintenance account. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $13,890 from the A1680.476 IT and Media Maintenance Account to East End Computers LLC for IT management and services for the year of 2025. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Be it resolved, the supervisor is authorized and directed to deposit the sum of $120 from Ready Refresh to the buildings repairs and maintenance general ledger account A1620.408 for the 2025 for a refund of 12 5-gallon water bottles deposited for the town hall account, which has been closed. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $6,974 from the 2025 A4540.484 ambulance office and miscellaneous to SCM Products Incorporated for the EMS SCM FRS annual maintenance software contract. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Residents of 3 Refugee County.
Thank you, Christina. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $1,580 from the A3120.491 PD contracts account to Motorola Solutions, Inc. for the annual video manager software. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be it resolved, the 2024 general claims number 2660 through 2687 in the amount of $99,543.69. The 2024 highway claim number 3369 in the amount of $210. The 2024 water quality improvement claim number 39 in the amount of $29.07 are hereby approved for payment as audited. The supervisor or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of same. So move.
I think you missed Community Preservation Fund claims number 35 through 38 in the amount of $8,681.57.
Right.
Now, so moved.
Now so move. Okay.
As amended,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved that 2025 general claims numbered 85 through 263 in the amount of $110,000, $110,255.68. 2025 Community Preservation Fund claim number 1 in the amount of $50. Water Quality Improvement claim number 2 in the amount of $50. And 2025 highway claims numbered 9 through 30 in the amount of $16,601.65 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of same. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, at this point, we're going to adjourn the work session and go into the public hearing portion of the meeting. Our first public hearing is for a mooring application.
For application of Marilyn Crandall Jones and Charles C. Crandall, care of Crandall Shelter Island LLC, 6 Summerfield Place, in Sully mooring at location designated as latitude 41.08778 degrees north and longitude negative 72.35690 degrees west.
Thank you.
Indeed.
WMAC,
Yes, looking for the exact date if I had it. I missed it. The WMAC met on January 13th, and the application is a Jones mooring application. It's multiple family members, and they're requesting the riparian mooring that was previously their family. And the vote was 6-0 to approve.
does anyone from the public have any comments on this application? Anyone in the Zoom audience? Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the next public hearing is on the local law.
The proposed local law entitled "A Local Law to Increase Membership of Planning Board." There you go.
All right. I'm going to open this to the public. Does anyone have any comments to make on the proposal to increase the number of the planning board members from 5 to 7?
We had correspondence
We have correspondence.
from Glenn Gruder regarding the local law.
Anyone on Zoom?
That should be read into the record. Meg, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be read into the record.
Amber, please.
Our firm represents Cheekwood Avenue LLC, which has a wetlands application currently pending before the Town of Shelter Island Planning Board. We note that the online agenda for the town board's meeting this evening includes one public hearing on proposed local law number 2, but it's 2025, entitled "A Local Law to Increase Membership of Planning Board." A proposed resolution for adoption of the said local law as local law number 1, 2025, and 2 proposed resolutions to appoint Gregory Cranford and David Kriegel as members of the planning board, both of which resolutions state that a vacancy exists on the planning board. Be advised that even the town board acts to approve of the resolution adopting the aforesaid proposed local law number 1, 2025 this evening. Such local law will not be effective until the adopted local law is actually filed with the Office of New York Secretary of State. In this regard, Section 27(3) of the New York State Municipal Home Rule Law, which governs the proposed adoption of local law, such as the proposed local law number 1, 2025, expressly provides, notwithstanding the effective date of any local law, a local law shall not become effective before it is filed with the Secretary of State. Accordingly, the aforesaid proposed resolutions to appoint Cranford and Kriegel as planning board members are premature and cannot be validly adopted this evening, as the planning board cannot be effectively expanded to 7 members, which would require new positions on the planning board to be filled until the aforesaid local law expanding the membership of planning board is filed with the New York Secretary of State. We thank you for your consideration. Gwen Woodward.
Stella, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Meg. So my question was, should you move forward with this resolution and there are 2 new members? I understand that they might not be able to function until the Secretary of State approves it, but would they start with new applications in front of the planning board, or would they get involved in existing applications?
Good question. My understanding and the understanding I've gained from the attorney is that these 2 new appointees would not be able to begin on the planning board until after the Secretary of State accepts and adopts this new local law, expanding the planning board. And then even then, they would not be able to weigh in on current applications. They would only be able to weigh in on new applications because technically their positions didn't exist when those applications began. I believe that's the case. Andrew Preston, if you have any comment, he's our legal tonight.
I think you have it absolutely correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hold on. There is 1 vacancy on the planning board now, which
We already
going to fill
filled that.
tonight.
Yeah, we appointed Sean
We
Davey.
already filled it?
Yeah.
And that person, Sean Davey, will be able to participate in existing applications because it's filling an existing position. It's just the 2 new ones cannot.
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
Anybody else? Miss? There's no further comment. I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the next public hearing is on docks. Amber?
On the proposed local law entitled, a local law amending chapter 53 entitled docks to update the code to address current environmental conditions.
All right, is there any comment?
I haven't.
No correspondence?
Correspondence from the lab.
Anybody from the public like to chime in on docks?
Yes, hello.
Karen?
Yes, this is Karen Lissikers. I've commented on this issue before. And, oh, I'd like to start my video, sorry. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I can't see you, but anyway. So I've commented on this before because I think it's important, particularly for the Peconic Bay shoreline along Silver Beach, where I live, and where I have been personally affected adversely by very loose rules on docks and too many waivers for code. And I'm very pleased that the town board is grappling with this, I know, very highly charged and sensitive issue. I thought that the earlier draft that called presumed that the whole Peconic Bay side was unsuitable for docks was a good idea, but you seem to have moved away from that. But what you've done in Article 5, Section 17, giving the power of the town to deny permits on the basis of a number of considerations, which I think are highly relevant, is a good substitute, and I strongly support that. I also like I would have preferred an absolute prohibition on splash walls since I've been affected by that. But at least you're suggesting that they should be discouraged, strongly discouraged. And the prohibition on boat lifts, I think, is very good. I would just add that the damage to my property, the erosion that started when my neighbor built the 125-foot dock with an L and a splash wall and a boat lift, which probably didn't contribute to that, except visually. The erosion has continued to the point where my bulkhead between my property and his has now been undermined. I came down on New Year's Day and looked and discovered that there was a huge pit behind my bulkhead, the stretch, the neighbor's his, and the erosion has now undermined the whole stretch of bulkhead, so I have to replace that in addition to all the expense I suffered in replacing dealing with the damage to my jetty. So this problem has cost me tens of thousands of dollars. So it is really important that the town take a strong and consistent position on not permitting structures in the bay that damage neighboring properties, which is what has happened to me, and I can certify, and I've provided photos in the past. So I think the language you are proposing in this latest draft, the February 11 draft, is good and strong, and I support it, and I hope you will go ahead with Section 15 and Section 8 and the other provisions you have put in place. And I hope that future town boards will follow up and exercise the powers that Section 17 provides to protect neighbors and environment. Thank you.
Thank you. John, I saw you had your hand up.
Good evening, John Edith. I've got, I'll try to keep this brief. I've got a couple of comments, one request for clarification and one request to add a sentence to this code. So I'll just run through. Under the definitions of residence, a term of 1 year for a resident can apply for a dock. Not sure that's enough time. That was my understanding. The reason behind that was so the resident could experience the 4 seasons and the impact on the waterfront property before going forward with a dock. If I was a new resident, in my mind to get a dock, I would start that process immediately with the deeds. I would not be experiencing what the 4 seasons were, how that would affect my property. So my thought is that should be more of a 2-year process. I was pleasantly pleased that as I was going through this, I was marked up, that's not that good, that's not good. And later on down the way, oh wait, they addressed it right here. Okay, so the one sentence I'm suggesting be added is on page 8 of the draft with all the process. It's 59 C. One, have to do with surveys. Some clarification of there, what we're looking for to have a survey contain. During my tenure on the WMAC, we had a policy, because it wasn't in the code, that the survey included an extension of the property line seaward for the length of the dock. And that became very important with determining whether there was a conflict with the neighboring dock. So my suggestion is that a sentence be added to that. Something along the lines of the survey shall include extensions of the property line seaward for the length of the proposed dock.
Got a quick question for Andrew Preston. I mean, John, as I'm sure you know, that's still the policy, and it would be great if it was in the code. But Andrew, can we add it to the code tonight without further delaying this action?
Unfortunately, no. The code, the proposed code or any code amendment would have to be the subject of notice and a subsequent public hearing. Sorry.
So- All right, so.
Maybe some other time.
We can do it later. I mean,
Yeah.
it should be in the code. It's certainly currently the policy of the WMAC. But it should be in the code, but delaying this further seems like a high cost to pay.
We stood behind that pretty strictly, and if a contractor came with us to an application without that on it, we sent it back. So we got that, so it was very
Yeah,
strict
and-
policy.
And the WMAC is still doing that. So thank you for establishing that protocol.
That's a small thing. I'm looking for clarification on length and depth of docks. It's 53(8)C. And this has to do with a narrow waterway. And previously, the criteria was that you couldn't into the waterway with your dock more than 15% to the opposing shore. There's an addition on here of the channel with a minimum width of 40 feet and a minimum depth of 2.5 feet at mean low water shall be maintained between the terminus of the proposed dock and the existing dock, future chapter compliant dock. I'm not sure what the meaning of the word maintained is. Is it dredging? Is it, I don't know, but I'm looking for clarification on that from whoever's in charge of this.
Unfortunately,
I think it should be changed to exist. I think the word should be that exist at the time of the application. I don't think we want to burden dock owner with dredging a narrow creek. But that, just a comment.
well, I mean, unfortunately, Bill's on vacation right now, and you could speak to this, but I mean, my reading of it is if you have requested a dock and are granted a dock, we want to make sure it's not going to be the town's responsibility to make sure you can get to that dock. So they need to maintain it. If they want it and they go through the process and are granted it, they need to make sure they can get their boat to their own dock.
So it should be dredging.
Okay, that's the intention.
Yeah.
Number 6 on that same page, the length specification on the offshore waters outside shoreline of 125 feet, I think is excellent. That was the number in my mind for many, many, many years. We had that as a policy. I was on the WMAC. Next page, boat lifts, private docks prohibited. Very pleased to see that. That is the consideration that scenic vistas be taken into consideration. Significant. Boat lifts are generally considered to be an eyesore. And I'm thinking of, not a big proponent of what's it called, something media, social media, but on the different sites as to a Shelter Island. Recently, there've been a lot of photographs of sunsets and sunrises and shorelines. When I show these to people that don't live here, they say, "Oh my God, that's a beautiful place you live." Those photos do not contain boat lifts. There's some docks in them, but boat lift. I'm very pleased to see that that's been addressed. And that's not it.
And to add to your comment, I just was in Florida and never paid attention to this before, but I was looking for boat lifts and they're everywhere and they're hideous.
Right. That's once you start, it's hard to stop. Anyhow, thank you for your time.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John. Next on the list, I have Dan Hockman.
Hi. I'm Dan Hockman, a 33-year waterfront property owner and lifelong boater. The 7 members of the Waterways Committee represent represent vast knowledge and, excuse me, the 7 members of the Waterways Committee deserve a vast knowledge and appreciation of our inland waterways and its safe enjoyment. Its members volunteer their valuable time, professional expertise, and individual perspectives. Our town committees are the backbone of our small, low-cost government. Give them the respect they deserve. Follow through on their dock code proposals for the sake of a safer and more beautiful island. Please, no boldness. We face our beautiful natural shore. Every morning I wake up and look at my neighbor's boat lift he installed during COVID. It breaks my heart. And as far as those splashboards go, on the outside waters, the natural wave action brings sand off and on the beach. In the winter, you have these low tides. Those waves come and push that sand right back up. The splashboards, and I'm on the same strip as Karen, the splashboards block those wave actions. And it's not an exact science, but in the winter, when you get those low tides and strong winds, White Beach turns from a little nothing to you can play volleyball on it. And it's irreparable damage that they cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Al Loretto, I have you next.
Thank you. Al Loretto, I'm a member of the Waterways Management Committee, also a waterfront homeowner for 35 years. And I want to thank you all for listening to the public in this process and as far as we've got. I noticed just a couple of minor inconsistencies I'd like to address first, and then I have one that I think is major. First of all, in 53.7, you mentioned that you can repair or replace in kind a conforming or non-conforming dock without a public hearing. And they added replace, and the concept was that you could replace a dock, start to finish, if it's whether it's conforming or non-conforming, as well, you can replace it in kind. But we're not consistent because in 53-9A, number 1, you mentioned maintain or repaired in kind. You failed to mention replaced. Should I keep going, or
You can keep going, I've got notes.
5315B1, which applies to freshwater docks, they may be repaired or replaced with struck through, and then then maintained was put in instead. And since you want to replace in 53.7, you should replace.
Mm-hmm.
In legislative intent, you mentioned the same criteria as in the definition of protected areas, and then proceed to spell out 3 areas that constitute about 2/3 of the outside waters. This is major, and I know, Albert, you were said I don't want to throw a wrench in the works. I remember the words at one of the last meetings, but I really would like to have those 3 areas identified. And you insisted on it, and they ended up in this latest draft. And it is a concern because I believe it's going to lead us down a path of legal action. It's just wide open for it. You're affecting 145 property owners with the 2 areas, with the Silver Beach area and with the Real Point to Hay Beach Point. 145 property owners that are not going to be happy that their properties are being singled out or targeted, and targeted differently. It also mentions some things like, among others, and areas designated by resolution of the town board from time to time. These also leave you open to litigation. How are these areas of concern, how are the new areas of concern being identified? How are those people being notified? Will there be public hearings or just a resolution with no public input? These are problems. You have to give people notice. Riparian rights don't go away from time to time. You say areas designated by resolution of the town board from time to time. But riparian rights don't go away from time to time. They're property, they're valuable, and they transfer with the property. So the fix for this is pretty easy. It's the last sentence that's in legislative intent. If you took it out, you would have 99% of this problem resolved. And it might be interesting to ask legal if you can leave a sentence out and not have to have a same thing? Yeah. Legal is saying that?
No.
Oh, sorry. It's okay.
You're in your session.
Okay, so just change. Okay, well, legal did advise you guys that it wasn't a good idea to clump, whole sections of the island into one category. Right, and with that in mind, I'd like to make you aware of an Article 78 proceeding that was levied against North Haven Village in July of 2020. It was actually filed in 2016 and took 3 years to get through the courts. So if you really want to slow this process down, leaving that sentence is a good way to do it. North Haven created a law. No new docks are built on the west side of North Haven in Noyac Bay. Noyac Bay, directly across from Peconic Avenue. Okay. So, they made some mistakes in their process, but so did we. Really. It sounds a lot like protected areas, right? All the docks on one side of the peninsula. They have a peninsula, we have an island. The court, it was a 100-page document. I would have brought this to you much sooner. I got it today. I had to foil it. It took a long time. It's a lengthy document with several lawyers involved, several plaintiffs. And the court ruled, I'm going to summarize it. I'm not a lawyer. Local law 1 is void, annulled, and vacated. It is beyond the scope of the navigation law, which does not delegate to them the authority to prohibit docks. The wave intensity difference is not an acceptable standard to prohibit a dock. It was ruled arbitrary and capricious. The court determined that the plaintiff was denied due process and equal protection in that the petitioner was treated different from other property owners in the rest of the village. The law was thrown out. For 3 years in the works. Legal advised you to take that sentence out. You put it in, however you can work it out, I think that would be to everyone's benefit. I respectfully ask that you strike out those phrases, more constructed and protected areas and areas designated, from time to time. If you can't do that, I don't, maybe you need to vote the whole proposal down. We all know who wins lawsuits, right? Lawyers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Al. Rich Bond, you next.
Hi, my name is Rich Bond, a Shelter Island resident, property taxpayer, and dock owner. First, I want to thank the town board for largely rejecting the WMAC's leadership and their attempt to erase hundreds of years of peaceful tradition as to the use, placement, and construction of docks on our island. As was pointed out repeatedly by opponents of the proposed code revision in previous hearings, this whole production has been nothing more than an exercise in searching for a big solution to a problem that doesn't exist. That said, this latest iteration raises serious concerns. First is, in my reading of it, is a glaring contradiction of the code's purpose. The legislative intent says that the board has the power to, quote, limit the regulated activities related to permitting docks. The definition of limit is to set boundaries or restrictions while still allowing some degree of action or behavior. However, in section 53(8)(a), titled Design and Construction of Private and Commercial Docks, you find these words: "Docks shall not be designed so as to be an impediment or a hazard to navigation, nor constructed in protected areas herein." So which is it? A careful consideration and limiting of docks per the legislative intent, or the outright prohibition of docks in the protected areas per section 53? Obviously, the contradiction needs to be addressed, and I strongly urge the board to make the document uniform with the legislative intent, the limiting approach, rather than the ban on docks approach. And this is something that Councilwoman Meg talked about last time, which is if you state a island-wide criteria for the outer shore, and you're very specific about that criteria, you can apply it on a case-by-case basis. You completely control and leave the power on permitting. You're giving up nothing to have a uniform standard without singling out protected areas. Even more concerning, though, is the second issue I want to raise, and that is the specific naming of these so-called protected areas in the legislative intent, which I believe will result in inevitable adverse economic and legal consequences. On the legal front, as Alice explained, a blanket prohibition on docks, especially in the so-called protected areas where docks have existed for many years, poses great risks for the town taxpayers, including but not limited to charges of improper spot zoning, unlawfully precluding a property owner's exercise of their riparian literal rights, the significant diminishment of their property values, and the violation of property owners' right to equal protection and due process as guaranteed by the United States Constitution and the New York State Constitution. I'm not making this up. This is not a case of Chicken Little. You just heard Al Loretto tell you that the Village of North Haven had its dock law declared unconstitutional in 2020 under an Article 78 challenge. North Haven was trying to ban docks, as Al explained, in Noyak Bay, same body of water as Mechanic Avenue. I know in particular that one of the several grounds that the village lost its case on was the use of waves intensity as one of the standards they used to attempt to ban docks. The state Supreme Court found this to be arbitrary and capricious. Now, if I remember correctly, this is one of the key standards you are using to try to ban docks in protected areas. To say that you should rethink this, I think, is an understatement. Now, Councilman Diet has been publicly dismissive over the threat of legal action, saying, among other things, "I'd love to try that case." Well, be careful what you ask for, because if you pass this code revision as currently written, I propose that every board member who votes for it should have their wages garnished to pay for the town's legal fees in the inevitable lawsuits that will occur as you have deliberately and willfully put taxpayer dollars at risk. Next, the economic consequences, which are vast because you're about to deliberately impact the market values of most waterfront homes on the island. Now, here's the back page of the Reporter a week ago. Deepwater docks on Shelter Island. Okay? And that's not a surprise. I mean, people are always talking about docks. But this is the headline. Do you think that the real estate community on Shelter Island doesn't know what you're proposing to do? There are 145 waterfront properties without a dock in the so-called protected areas. Are you about to devalue every one of them? At the same time, you're about to increase the value of every waterfront home that already has a dock in the so-called protected areas and anywhere else on the island. By the way, that would include the waterfront properties owned, for instance, by me, by Al Loretto, and by Chairman Garrity of the WMAC. I don't think any of us want this unintended bonus at the expense of our fellow Shelter Islanders. But that's the economic reality that you're deliberately creating if you limit or ban docks in the so-called protected areas. Now, just so you know, if you pass this code and ban docks in the protected areas, Al Loretto and I discussed sending 2 letters in the cause of keeping the public informed. One is to the 145 waterfront owners without a dock in the protected areas, explaining how you have deliberately devalued their property by limiting or prohibiting them from building a dock and removing a possibility that a future owner could do so. We will also explain to them their rights under Article 78 and include a copy of the Supreme Court judgment against North Haven. And we're also considering sending a certified letter to every head of every real estate agency on Shelter Island, briefing them on your actions and listening to your problems. Once they are made aware of your punitive action on docks, they and their agents will be legally bound to inform prospective buyers and sellers in these 145 locations of the massive disruption in their property values. You've banned their ability to have docks. Now you expect them to suffer the economic consequences in silence? I can't wait to see how that works out for all concerned. Lastly, I want to point out the Trojan horse nature of the document in 2 places. I'll mention them. First, in the legislative intent section, at the advice of your attorney, Mr. Leventhal, you have inserted the words, among others, after listing out so-called protected areas. Second, in the definition section, for the so-called protected areas are the words in areas designated by resolution of the town board from time to time. Now, both insertions create gigantic loopholes by which the town board can add protected areas by resolution and not through a transparent and democratic code revision process. The insertion of both phrases may be very sound legal advice, very appropriate for him to tell you that, but they defy democracy and they undercut the claims made by many members of this town board. For instance, Councilman Dixon, you've been great on repeatedly calling for more transparency. Councilman Diet, you have consistently called for more input from the public on board decisions. Councilman Gooding, you've called for listening sessions and more citizen involvement in town issues. And Megan and Amber, you've done the same. I applaud all of you for that. That's great stuff. Couldn't agree more. Yet, by inserting these loopholes in here, you're deliberately removing transparency and public input from the most controversial aspect of the code revision, banning docks in protected areas. I'm disappointed by this maneuver. You pass a resolution and hey presto, more so-called protected areas are created, all done with no notice on the town website, no notice to the reporter, no public hearing, no work session, and no opportunities for constructive input from the voters. Poof, eliminated. So here's the thing. I actually believe you are sincere in wanting voter input, but you're purposely circumventing it in this instance. I think you're better than this. By removing these Trojan horse efforts, you can prove that you are sincere in wanting voter input. And if you don't, then we'll know how to interpret that. So in summary, thank you for your patience. 1, please delete the ban on docks in 53(8)A and use the limiting approach as stated in the legislative intent. 2, remove the specific naming of the so-called protected areas in the legislative intent. 3, remove the words among others and from time to time in the definition section to facilitate transparency and voter involvement in future code revisions. Thank you for your patience and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Karen Lissikers. May I respond?
No, Karen, I'm going down the list, but once everyone's
Okay.
spoken, you can speak again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bobby Lane, I believe you're next.
Bobby Lane, 84 Peconic, and I'm probably one of the few sitting here that have a piece of property that would be adversely affected by this. And I think that the reason why we're really here, and I appreciate so many of the things that you pointed out, but the reason why we're here is because when decisions were made by the Waterways Committee, difficult ones, and I live on Peconic Avenue, and I am a boater, and I'd love a dock. Not appropriate in my spot. And the reason why we're here is because when the Waterways Committee said, don't build this dock, don't put up wave shields, they bring in attorneys and they say, I want it, I'm getting it, I have deep pockets. That's why we're in this situation. People are not respectful of Shelter Island. Everyone wants to do what they want to do. And Karen, as she spoke before, has significant damage to her property. It's significant. If my neighbor next door decided to put up the same thing, I'd be furious. My bulkheading is it was 125,000. I'd love a dock. The wind is too strong, the wave action is crazy. It doesn't work. So I do appreciate a lot of the comments, but I don't care if you say you can't have a dock here. I mean, I already know I can't have a dock there because I'm a reasonable and a smart boater. So I really hope that you think about this and the reason why we are here. We're here because people came in to try to sue us, and I sat in on all those meetings. And let me tell you, if you speak to the individual people on Peconic Avenue, I can name them for you that don't have docks, they would not put a dock in because it's wrong, because you can't keep a boat there. Yes, maybe, and I'm not stargazing from my dock. Let me tell you that. I can do it from my lawn. I have a great view of the sky. But my vista is the best. But I too get to see the lifts that someone put up. I don't know who approved it. It ruins my sunset. I do have to walk out to try to avoid it. But please, maybe you need to tweak one or two things, tweak it, but understand why we even are at this point at discussing changing it. So thank you very much. And I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then last on the list, I have Bert Wade.
Yeah,
You want to speak?
yeah, let's say something. Sure. So I just quickly, but I've done a lot of boating over in Noyak Bay, and I know that area well. The law was designed to ban docks north of what's the community dock at the West Bank Association going north. And they did lose the lawsuit. The guy had first put in a huge revetment with rocks, and they covered with dirt. The dirt eventually got all washed out. But anyway, came back, built the dock, and it's basically not usable. Okay, you cannot, I've tried to get into it on many occasions. There's rocks even approaching it, and the wind and the tide is so rough, you wouldn't want to go in there unless you had a steel barge and spud down. So good luck to the guy, all right? But he's got a good sales pitch. So yeah, but I agree with, Rich Bond. I think you got to clean it up to avoid lawsuits. And then the dock law says nothing about the type of materials you have to use, the type of installation. Some places ban jetting, they have to pound them in. And so it's possible you could say you could limit the size of a piling going in if you're going to, you could build a dock, and there used to be a steamboat slip on the outside of Deering Harbor facing Greenport and the jetty. You can build something that can hold a boat, but you got to build it big. So if you looked at the material side of things, maybe that could inform people without taking away their rights. I don't know. I'll get the answer. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Bert. I see that Angelo Picozzi, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi Meg, how you doing?
Good.
Good. So yeah, I think Rich Bond brought up a good thing. The intent really has to be tightened up. And a question I've been asking for a while is, has the town looked into, have they asked Andrew Preston or somebody that knows the answer. Does the town actually have jurisdiction over the land under the water on the outside bays? We all know they have the Nichols patent for the Deering Harbor and Chase Creek and Gardner's Creek and all the inland waters. But has anybody sat down and said, wait a second, do we actually have the legal right to make laws to prevent people from putting docks on their property? Because like Rich said, and Bert said, and Al, you're gonna start getting yourself into a lot of lawsuits. So why not clean up the code and prevent the lawsuits right at the get-go? Like another example is your definition of wave action driven by wind or boat traffic. My God, that would eliminate every dock on Shelter Island. If you're standing on the northeast side of the island on a nor'easter, you're going to say should be no docks there. If you're standing on the southwest side of Shelter Island on a southwester, you're going to say no docks should be there. That definition, defining it in your legislative intent is like you're opening up a Pandora's box on yourselves. Why do that? It makes no sense. You really need to hire a good attorney that can look at this, because this started with the Waterways Committee, and that was a disaster. Then we had the former attorney, I won't mention his name, he's well known, that was another disaster. And now you're trying to pick pieces and parts of this legislation, and it's a quilt that doesn't get put together too well. It's not good at all. So let me go down a little bit further here. So on a definition of a commercial dock, and I mentioned this at not the last hearing, but the one before, I said, your definition of a commercial dock is blah, 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 located in a B zone. Well, what about all the commercial docks that are located in AA and A and C zone? Do they get a free run? They can do whatever they want because they're not even in the code here that you're trying to write. And then how can you limit a commercial dock to 100 feet? What, is everybody going to come into a commercial dock in a kayak? That's crazy too. So you really have to look through this. Then the definition of a resident. Someone has to domicile on Shelter Island for a full year before they can build the dock. Well, what if their primary residence is in Texas and they've owned their property for 50 years here with a house and everything but a dock? Now they've got to just uproot themselves and live here for a full year before they can build the dock? Does that make any sense? Am I reading that wrong? Okay, no response. Okay, so the next thing, is regarding the town dock in Deering Harbor. You have June 15th to September 15th, no more than 2 consecutive hours of docking. Can that be changed to May 15th so it covers the very busy Memorial Day weekend that the local shops down on Bridge Street rely on for the transient boat traffic coming into Deering Harbor, instead of making it June 15th and they totally miss the Memorial Day weekend?
Okay, that note.
Okay. Another thing about, you're talking about wave action and inappropriate location of docks. Well, the town dock itself, you're allowing people to dock there between June 14th and May, excuse me, you have it down now is, let's see, it's June 14th. It's over the winter months. I guess it's September 16th to June 14th. That becomes an inappropriate dock on a nor'easter there. You're setting yourself up for liability that someone's boat's going to get crushed on that dock. So there's no protection at that dock whatsoever. Then on another thing where you say the total cost for repair should not, if you want to be waived from needing a permit, should not exceed $10,000. Well, that's like about 5 or 6 pilings nowadays. I think you should bring that figure up to about $25,000 not needing a permit, Because for $10,000, you're gonna have people just for the slightest repairs, of replacing a few busted pilings or some stringers, having to come knock on the building department door to get that accomplished, which is a waste of everybody's time and money. So that's something else that should be addressed. Let's see. Okay, and then under the permit section, you say a permit will expire 12 months from the date of issuance. Well, by the time you get bids from a contractor and they get submitted, and then weather permitting, and you're not going to work in the summer on a dock, next thing you know, your permit's expired. Why can't that be just a 2-year permit? Why is 12 months the answer to everything? That's ridiculous. If you've ever tried to build a dock, you know 12 months is not enough time, especially if it's a pretty major construction project. So that should be automatically changed to 2 years. And then you say here, this was, I thought, a really good one. At least 30 days prior to a public hearing for existing dock alterations and modifications, the applicant now shall mail notice of time, day, place, and nature of the hearing to the owners within 200 feet of his property. Well, you're collecting permit fees. Wouldn't that be the town job? Why is that the homeowner's job to try to find addresses and contact the neighbors within 200 feet of your property? I don't understand that at all. Oh, this was another good one. Maintain a written log. Okay. I just want to say Pecosi's had the first pump out station in Suffolk County in 1972, and we still maintain it and operate it to this day. But to have the boaters, who most of the time don't even use their pump out, their holding tanks, they use onshore facilities. They don't use their holding tanks, most of them. It says maintain a written log indicating dates when the boat's waste storage tank was pumped. So, okay, they get boarded by the Shelter Island patrol boat, and they have a book that has nothing written in it. Does that make them automatically guilty because they show no pumping of their holding tank? What is the purpose of this? This is like just wasting everybody's time. Matter of fact, in inland waterways, the Y valves are supposed to be wired and locked shut. That's a Coast Guard or a state regulation. Is the town supposed to take care of everybody's regulations under one roof? These are regulations that are already on the books. Let's see here. Oh, I thought this was good too. On the final note, it lists the violations and how much you're going to be fined. And I like how it put 2,500 or imprisonment, 5,000 or imprisonment. I mean, you can rob a bank nowadays and not even go to jail. But if you do something with your dock, you're going to throw people in prison. It's ludicrous. You know, you guys, you're working hard 24 hours a day, but you're not getting it. You got to really fine tune this law, and you got to hire somebody that understands the codes. And also how adversely, like Richard Bond says, you're affecting people's properties. And I'm all in favor of no docks. I mean, it would be great if the whole island could operate with no docks. You know, growing up here as a kid, there's nothing better than a white sandy beach and not being obstructed by docks. But, you know, God bless a person that pays $5–10 million for a piece of land on the water thinking he can have a dock. You know, it's just, this is life, folks. You know, it would be great if we could live in a bubble and have no docks, but it's just not reality. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Angelo. All right. Does anyone else from the audience want to speak? Dan Hoffman?
Along with that $5–10 million house comes a 50, 100, 200-foot boat parked in front of your house. Okay? Me, personally, the docks that were built in my neighborhood, forget about the monetary. I think I lost money on my house because now I do not have that beautiful $2 million view that I enjoyed for 33 years. So for me personally, it's not only a great emotional loss, it is a financial loss to me. And I don't plan on selling my house ever. My kids have it for generations. But the loss of that view is a significant financial and emotional loss for me personally. So it's not 144 residents are going to lose their rights. I'm sure there are some, but there are others, including myself, I'm sure there's a few others, I don't know how many, that are on the other side of the ball with regards to our natural landscape and preserving it.
Thank you.
This is Karen.
Karen?
Can I-
Yeah, Karen?
Yes. So just in terms of cost, my cost is, I can attest to the cash cost of the erosion of a beach that has been in place since family acquired the property in 1957, and it began and has continued since my neighbor's enormous dock was put in place. It's probably cost me close to $40,000 cash. So in addition to the visual impairment of my beautiful view over Peconic Bay, but it has come straight out of my bank account too. And the town is right to try to balance the public interest and the competing private interests in a sensible way. So I hope you will persist and continue with what you're doing, and to note the particular vulnerability of the, as we all know, of the Peconic Bay stretch. So thank you for your efforts, and I hope you persist.
Thank you, Karen. Is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak on the dock code? Is there anyone else in the audience? I see no hands. Should we make a motion to close this hearing and then review our notes?
I'll make that motion.
Meg, I listened to everybody's conversation here, and what it really comes down to is we got property rights to a certain extent, and money is involved, and I'm trying to find, what is the solution? Where is the compromise? It seems like it's either all or nothing. And I think everybody has some really great valid points. I think that, Dan had some very good points. And I guess the folks, it's always easy to poke holes into legislation and what you should do and you shouldn't do. I'm just trying to figure out what would satisfy it short of just changing it again. Can we come to some kind of a understanding that, when we talk about Peconic Avenue, I don't know, it seems, to me, it's almost illogical that someone would want to put a dock there. And I understand the concept that you're taking away the right to put a dock there, but when your dock impacts somebody else, I don't know about that. I don't know whether you're really entitled to do that. I don't know whether there's a value you can put on that. I think that a lot of Bert and Al, you folks spend a lot of time on the water, and I can really understand where you're coming from. I would just like to see if there's, I think we may be. There seems to be it's an emotional thing, and yes, it's money, but money. That's not everything in life. And it's not like you're trying to take money away from someone. I just think that everybody's got a pretty good point of view, except that I think we don't really have the right to impact another person. And I think that's the problem I'm hung up with. Okay, if this lady had a dock there, and I know where it is. I've seen it, been past it 100 times on the waterfront. Okay, I don't think that's fair either. And so just because you have a right, does that right include that you should be able to damage another person's piece of property or block somebody's point of vista of view? I don't know there probably is no real good answer that anybody here would be comfortable with. I think it's time to really make a decision. And I think that it may not appease everyone, But like everything, you can always revisit things if if it creates that kind of a problem, but I don't know. I have a problem when if you're impacting somebody else, I don't know whether that's okay. I guess that's how I'm feeling about it. I think you may have the right, but I don't think you have the right to harm another person's property or cause them discomfort, okay? And I guess I would ask you, I would ask, what would you like the other side to say, Al?
Well, just let me bring up a couple of points. Just a couple of points. As a waterways committee, we are pretty much in agreement that there are areas where it just really doesn't make sense to put a dock.
Okay.
And we are very comfortable with making that recommendation. Where what we're uncomfortable with is forcing their hand. When they come back with their attorney and said, I want my rights and yada, yada, then we're tied and you're tied. So that's one. And let me just take one other step. We're talking about an area, Peconic. And I know that the sand there has shifted back and forth over the years. And you know that, right?
I sent photographs of it to the town board.
Right.
It comes in the winter, it goes, it's pretty much gone.
To say that a dock caused that is gonna take some science. You can't just make an observation and say that. It's just any engineer, and we don't have that resource. We have a prior town engineer that did, but we don't have that expertise. So to make that claim, I look at that area and I realize that in that area, exactly from Dan's house up to the town landing, all right, over the last 4 or 5 years, 4 or 5 bulkheads along there failed. All right, so as a bulkhead fails, before you even see it failing, there's a lot of sand that just goes out and under. And when the bulkheads did get replaced, all of them had to have fill. How much fill did you have to get? Not that much? The one down.
Behind my bulkhead?
Yeah, on the land side of the bulkhead. You replaced it.
I put a few yards in every winter, and the same deal when they replaced it, I had to take it, so not much.
Okay, but the town landing this summer lost a tremendous amount of land. And Dr. Sherrod's property, same thing. His had just totally collapsed. So all that sand, that's going out and creating a beach until the person places the bulkhead. Once the bulkhead's replaced, now you have a nice, clean, smooth, shiny surface for the sand to travel and go east and west. It's not gonna be in one area. So those are just observations. I'm not a coastal expert.
Would you spend your own money to put a dock on that side of the island?
No, personally.
So doesn't that say something that you realize the risk factor, that you wouldn't waste your money on it, as well as that it's not the appropriate place to put it, correct? So the thing is, I think what's being said here is, they earmark certain places, okay, but can you say at least that side of the island really? I mean, listen.
Getting into the side thing, and that's the lawsuit. That is the classic.
It's our job to create that tool. So what I would propose is that we close this hearing so that we can take all the comments into consideration and discuss exactly what you're discussing, and how to make this legislation work in the best way for the town.
At the same time, I'm sympathetic to all the views that are here. Okay, there's no one wants to do harm to anybody, but I think there is some common sense here, and I think that I'm struggling with it. That's all I can tell you. Just like you're struggling with it, I'm struggling with it. Okay.
Well,
I agree, it's not
struggling
easy
with
for
it
any of us.
because we're here again because we've been considering public input. And that's what this process is all about. I mean, Amber has made a motion to close the hearing. Or did you second it? I can't remember.
I made the
But-
motion.
Make the motion.
Okay, well, I'll second it. Because we can go away, we can look at some of the comments made tonight, and if we decide to make a few more changes, we can reopen the hearing. If we decide not to make any changes, then we can move forward with the legislation as it is. And remember, even if we move forward with it as is, we can always go amend little things. Consider this a piece of software in your phone. You get updates after you, and it's never always right, but you can always fix it.
All right, thank you. All right, so we have a motion made by Amber, seconded by Benjamin. All in favor of closing the hearing? Aye.
Aye.
Hearing
I,
closed. Thank you. All right, our next hearing is a reconvening of the Gardner's Bay Country Club application. Do we have any correspondence?
Since you're here, do you want to speak upon?
I've been waiting for reading of what I submitted because.
Okay, I just wanted you to be
Five pages
offended
long.
if I didn't. I didn't
No,
want you to speak
5
upon it
pages
if you
is
can't.
kind of long, and at this point, I don't think it's gonna fit.
Well, bless you, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
I am somewhat rational.
I have a letter from Ken Kraus.
Okay.
It's a page in it. My name is Ken Kraus. I reside on Country Club Drive, and I have since 1987. We're one of the first purchasers on Hay Beach property when it became available and subdivided in the 70s. It was an area my wife and I identified as most desirable location and spot for our family's future. Concurrently, as a matter of choice and lifestyle and sport therapy, I have enjoyed being a member of Gardner's Bay Club. When I am not there, I still find enjoyment in knowing it's there, that is vibrant, that will be enjoyed by many, that when I drive through, I see juniors, families, and men and women of all ages enjoying their games, their golf course, and its beauty. Gardner's Bay is truly a Shelter Island institution, and it has been an important part of our history and lore of Shelter Island's tourists' second home fabric. Since 1896, and largely for 130 years, you could count on Gardner's Bay to provide memories for its golfing membership, outing participants, and guests. As a member of the board there, we, management, and others that serve our volunteer capacities are resolute in preserving its character, beauty, relevance, its continuance, and appeal as ongoing concern and attraction to new members. To achieve these goals, we occasionally have to upgrade and/or replace key infrastructure components, and in tonight's ask, specifically the pump house, which would be further away from the Hay Beach homeowners' perimeter than the current one. The pump and structure would be 50 years newer, resulting in quieter, more efficient operation. Additionally, the cistern, which is the concrete vault, will both be the foundations for the structure and store water. This system, currently utilized by numerous golf courses, allows faster, more effective irrigation cycles with less evaporation. This means the pump will run less than it currently does. Lastly, another benefit will be that it will be enabled to the house a water treatment drip or Venture system to treat our water source to elect an even better soil and plant response, much like what the homeowner might install. All other permits will remain as targeted and directed by best management practices, soil and water data, and if needed, plant diagnostics. We at the club and as I come up to speed, recognize some mistakes in approaching time, clarity, and communications have become apparent and made. I'm not sure they rise to a level where denial would be appropriate, but we as a board and membership and on behalf of professional and seasonals we employ, we respectfully ask for the approval of the town board to enable Gardner's Bay to continue in accordance with member directives to meet and maintain high standards our predecessors set through the decades.
Thank you, Amber. We have Ben Howell here from Gardner's Bay Country Club. Thank you, guys.
You have to allow something? All right. Name's Ben Howell, superintendent over at Gardner's Bay. I'm there for about 4 months. Here to talk to you guys tonight about the cistern pump house application that we have in. For those who haven't seen it or want to see an idea of what the cistern looks like, this concrete structure here on the left is one they did in Jersey last year. Obviously underground, all concrete. And you can see the supports here. I know it's been brought up before that the cistern measurements don't equal 116,000 gallons, but people aren't taking into consideration the width of the walls and the support beams on the inside. So it brings it from 154,000 gallons. Really, the holding capacity is 116,000.
Excuse me, Ben,
Yeah.
can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah, go
What
for
is your position?
I'm the superintendent at Gardner's Bay.
Of the grounds?
Yeah, I run the outside operations.
All right, thank you.
Maintenance of the golf course.
Can you move, if you look at your screen, there's a little rectangle that says, the stop screen share. If you slide that over to the side, I think it won't show up on the screen because it's blocking part of your presentation. Perfect, thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
No, you're good. I just want people to be able to read it.
No, that's all right. So I want to clarify, as of now, Gardner's Bay Country Club does not wish to collect any rainwater as part of this application. We have removed it. Our current goal is to get the cistern assembled underneath the pump house to maximize efficiency of our updated irrigation system that we've been working on the last few years. Right, so this is what we consider phase one of the storage tank. These are the dimensions, 53 feet by 41, 16 feet. The tank itself is only 13 feet deep, but that's considering the foot that we went down to put rock underneath the bottom and the 2 feet of soil that would be on top. The cistern will not change our 120 gallons a minute well, which is going to fill the cistern. And this will still not exceed our 6 million gallon allowance by the DEC per year. Positive for the cistern, it has the ability to slowly fill throughout the day and not overwork the well by running for straight periods or straight long periods. This eliminating chance of salt intrusion. Basically, we can control it how long we want to fill the cistern at and not consistently run it all night. So right now, when we run water at night, the well is constantly running to keep up with pressure of the system. By filling the cistern, the well will not have to run theoretically at night. We can get 2 days at the highest point of the year. If we're pumping 49,000 gallons in like middle of the summer, that'd be like the most water that we put out. Theoretically, we could go 2 days without having to run the well. We think that's better for everybody, including the community. This allows us for quicker irrigating, which also is better for plant health. There's certain timings that are involved when you water. Sometimes you like to water late evening. Sometimes you like to water early morning, depending on weather patterns that are current for that time. So we might not run the well for days, depending on weather patterns. In the spring, if the tank is full, we could go multiple weeks without having the well to come on. Some days in the spring, we're only using 4,000 gallons a day. The cistern's full, we can manually shut it off where the well won't come on at all. An alternative for cisterns, this is done around the country by a lot of golf courses. Without a cistern, people construct ponds. We don't have an area where we want to construct a pond or land to do it. But it's the same concept. They're filling these ponds with wells and then in large quantities, and then they're able to pump faster from the pond instead of pumping straight from the well. There's a lot of negatives that go into this alternative. The lining is very dangerous. If somebody was to walk in, it becomes very slippery. It's like walking on seaweed. Evaporation loss coming from the sun, leaking loss if the liner is broken. Out here, we would have a massive mosquito problem, algae growth. We'd have to use pesticides to avoid algae. We'd need large filtration systems, and there would be a higher noise factor as the pumps are outside, not in the building. So this is the alternative to a cistern that we definitely are not going to do and don't have the space to do. Updating the current pump house, which will be on top of the cistern. Currently, our old pump house is a little shack on the side of the property. It's not insulated, has very old technology for monitoring. It's 17 feet from the closest Hay Beach resident. The new one, it was kind of hard for me to measure exactly where it's going to be, but it's about 93 feet. So we're basically tripling the distance farther away from the Hay Beach residents. Inside the current pump house, we have older piping and shut-off valves. They're not functional. Just as time goes on, you need to replace things, and it's time there. It pumps slowly, forcing us to run more frequent and for longer periods, and we think that's a negative for the whole community. That's updated irrigation system that we've been working on since about 2022. There's a lot of benefits that came from it. Sprinkler heads are more effective and accurate. We don't have to worry about heads getting stuck on or leaky valves. Our new coverage of heads is way more precise than it was. For example, when we had a T-box, the old system had 5 heads. All those 5 of those heads would come on at the same time. Now all of our heads are monetarily controlled by our computer. So we can only turn 1 out of those 5 heads on if just the front of the T needs water. It just allows us to be way more precise with our applications. We think it's important to let everybody know that we maintain 81.5 acres. The whole property is 154. When we say maintain, that means weekly cutting. So we have a lot of areas on the golf course and what we consider natives, which we don't cut water, fertilizer, or anything. They're just tall, about 2 foot tall grass that we cut once a year. Our total irrigated surface is about 36 acres. So, when you look at the whole property, we're really not putting water everywhere. We are very precise and conservative with our watering. One of the biggest things about updating this irrigation system is now we have a map. For about 20 years, the system was kind of hodgepodge together. There was never an actual map. It was they did this hole and then they do this hole, and there was nothing. We didn't really know exactly where all the pipes and valves were for the system. So the updated mapping, which is now available, and it has been available at the building department since last January, but I've sent that to the town, so anybody can print that out, look at it. I'm going to show you a picture of it in a second, but it's really hard to look at on the screen. You kind of got to open it up in a PDF and you can zoom around and see where the heads and pipes are located. Another important thing is we have never reached our 6 million gallon. I know that we're allowed to. That doesn't mean that we use it all every year. So I have a slide coming up that will show totals as well. This is the map that's available. I sent it to the town. Like I said, it's also available at the building department if you want a hard copy, but I suggest asking for it from the town and getting it in a PDF. You can really scroll in, but the map shows you here that there's clearly a lot of areas that we don't irrigate. So, we are very conservative with our water applications. As far as research and consultants, the club does its due diligence, I feel. Paul Roche is the leading golf course irrigation consultant. He works all around the country and even out of the country in some areas. He's the one who designed our whole system and came up with this process of having the cistern underneath the pump house. Cornell Cooperative Extension, we give them all of our records of spray applications. They know every single pesticide that we put out, and they come to our property and test our wells and the water around it there every year to make sure that none of the chemicals that we're applying are leaching through into the system and they can't find any evidence of it. So they've been doing that for about 20 years and we're fully cooperative with them. The Department of Environmental Conservation is known as the DEC. We submit all of our records for all 4 wells on the property. When I say 4 wells, that doesn't mean we have 4 wells for irrigation. We have 1 for our maintenance facility, 1 for the clubhouse, 1 for the bathroom, and then our 4th one is our irrigation well. But we record every number each month and send that in yearly to the DEC. We also have a company that we pay for, Maximum Environmental Management. They come once a month, test our levels of pH and nitrates and certain other chemicals that we want to monitor. So kind of just shows you that, we do pay attention and we are, concerned with what these tests are coming back as. This picture just shows here that, the aquifer is very deep. We'd have to go down 128 feet to hit salt water. As far as daily testing, we use moisture meters. That's this picture here on the left. This is a tool that we use daily. I got 5 of them at the golf course. My guys have become very good at it. So we test each area. This will give us a reading, and this will tell us how much water we need to put out at night or during the day. So by using this, we are very conservative with water. We don't just throw water everywhere. You know, we're targeting certain areas that need it. As far as our soil tests that are done yearly, you know, we are able to see which areas are deficient, and that's how we make our fertilizer application. So when we go out and fertilize, at no point do we just broadcast fertilizer everywhere. We're making direct applications to the areas that need to be improved. As I said, we test our wells. We also test for static water depth, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. I think it's a really good slide for people to see. And so this is our total usage. I went back to 2017. We have records going back all the way that I found to, I think it was 2002, but I just decided to go back 8 years. Right here, you can clearly see that the club does not use its 6 million, even though we're allowed. We don't just throw water for no reason, make target applications, and I think this clearly shows that the club does its best to conserve water. This is the static water depths. So in 1996, when our well was moved from the east side of the property towards the Hay Beach side, that was recommended by DEC. Clearly shows here that the depth has not changed in any of these monitoring wells. All 3 of these wells border the Hay Beach property. Not sure why, but I assume because that's where residents were that they put them in there. You can see that our monitoring goes back to 2022. That's basically when we kind of started this whole irrigation project, and the club purchased a tool that allows us to measure it. So there's 3 wells in the ground, and you know, obviously since then we've tried to take more readings. My goal is to take about 3 or 4 readings a year. Basically a tool that I open up a little cap. It's a big measuring tape. You drop it down, and as soon as it hits water, it makes a beep. That tells us where the level is of depth from that. So in this fall, we had a huge drought. You can see that the water depth barely changed. I think it's just important that this information is out there. So I'm going to send this to, I guess, Amber, and she can post it after so people can really take a look at this if they want to. I'm not going to sit here forever, but like I said, it's very important, I think, too, that all 3 of these testing wells are all along the Hay Beach property border. So that would be the west side of our property. I want to explain the fertigation system. Kind of gets a bad name, sounds like fertilizer. I didn't create it. It's what they call it all across the country. The main purpose of a fertigation system is to adjust pH levels, just like most people do in their houses. You know, levels can become acidic or alkaline. You can also smell it in the water depending on what it is. You can also feel it's a little heavier. So we do the same thing with the fertigation system. By changing the pH of the water or adjusting it to what we want, it's better effective for the plant to take in. The other option for a fertigation system is to use wetting agents. This is not a pesticide. This is just to help the plant intake water and actually need less water to survive, because it's allowing the plant to hold the water in it. That's what a wetting agent is. Put this slide up for pH. I don't really need to go into the science. I don't think it's really necessary here, but I just want people to know that we are monitoring this. Safe range is about 6 to 8.5. Our last reading of the well, which was in October before we shut it down, was 6.01. So in that case, we would add a little bit of lime and calcium to try and get that pH level closer to 7, where we consider that optimal or neutral. Just want to reconsider or restate it. Right now, Gardner's Bay has no plan to collect any rainwater at this point and has deleted it from the application. We are willing to work with the town and residents to come up with a solution if we want to choose to do that later in the future. But right now, that's not part of our application. And we think the cistern is a great benefit for us as well as the community. We think it maximizes the efficiency of our updated irrigation system. And we hope you guys agree with that. Be glad to answer any questions if you guys have anything.
I had a question. By condensing the irrigation time, does that save water through evaporation, or is it just you're cycling through the different areas all at the same time, or as opposed to staging them?
It's more helpful in the sense of weather patterns. So, when it's super windy, we try not to water. The water's not going where we want it to technically. Plant health as well as dew can be really bad for plants. That's how diseases are, almost created. They love to breed off that dew in the early morning. So a lot of time the strategy is to water 4 or 5 in the morning and knock that dew off the plant as well as water. So you're kind of doing 2 in 1 at the same time. It's all about time of year, humidity levels, ET rates. All that is taken into consideration on a daily basis on when we decide to water and how much.
Thank you.
I have one quick question as well. The wetting agent, I don't know what that is, but it's going into the ground and going into the bays and it's running off. Is that a chemical that is of concern?
It's not concerned. The DEC doesn't even have it as a registered pesticide. It's basically like soap. All it really does is help the plant intake water. So it kind of gets inside the plant and holds moisture in the plant longer. We apply it at very small rates, so it doesn't go into the soil. It stays on the plant at the top, and it's applied in very small rates in increments of 2 weeks or 4 weeks, depending on the chemical that you're using. But it's a very low rate, and it's basically like you can put your hand in the jug. It feels like soap. But it's not a registered pesticide by the DEC, so it's not harmful really to anything.
It's a surfactant.
It's a surfactant, exactly, yeah.
Helps break the water tension. Do you have any questions?
I think you're going to ask.
No, yeah, I'm going to ask everybody.
You want me to stay up here? Or?
You can just unshare so I can see the whole screen and see if there are people online who have their hand up. And then if people have questions, we'll answer. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. It worked on my screen. I don't know why it's still. It's okay. Okay. I see Dave Ruby, you have your hand up. Okay, I wasn't sure.
Am I recognized?
Yes.
Oh, good evening. Thanks for the time. I was going to talk about some other aspects, but I think we can get to the meat of this. I think Mr. Howell just put up a map of their irrigation system that proves that they've expanded the system beyond the code language. Can I screen share, or is that something?
No, we prefer not to have you do that. Typically, if we allow someone to do a presentation, we've already seen it, so we know it's appropriate.
Well, I have I have a document from the Gulf Water, which is GBCC's consultant, that outlines the original code areas for irrigation, as well as their planned expansion areas. The expansion areas correspond to what Mr. Howell is presenting as the current system. So
If you'd like to email it to the board, you can.
Sure.
Or the town clerk, and she
So
can.
I think Gardner's Bay has expanded the system beyond the code.
Then a copy could also go to the building department.
Absolutely. That's it for me.
Okay,
I won't
thank
take
you. Bill?
Yep.
Yeah, great.
Good evening. For those that don't know me, I'm Bill Mastro. I am also president of the Hay Beach Property Owners Association. I want to thank you guys. I realize it's late. I'll try to be relatively brief. I am not going to go into the details of the 2 letters that we have already submitted. I would ask that both of our letters be posted on the town website, along with Gardner's Bay response to our first letter. Make just a couple of the quick questions and concerns that we stated in the documents is that not all documents have been received. We're worried about all things regarding the fertilization, and where it was said that there was a potential use of human septic wastewater. I don't know. That really does give us great concern. We are concerned with the saltwater intrusion. We're concerned with the pumping capabilities, especially what will occur during the summer months when there isn't as much recharge occurring to the aquifer, and what will happen at that point. And as Dave just mentioned, the areas of irrigation and whether or not what's being done is in compliance with the code. A few other quick overall type of issues. And as a neighbor of Gardner's Bay, I want them to be successful, but I want them to be successful in an appropriate way. Over the last few years, there's been sort of a master plan that they keep putting out pieces of and pulling back, putting out pieces of, pulling back. There's been the barracks, there's been the request for utilizing 12 million gallons of water. They don't even use the 6 they have now. The rain, water recapture, and now something with the cistern and the pump house. Not saying the pump house, cistern pump house is wrong, but it seems like it's whack-a-mole. It's not, if you're gonna have a master plan, look at the entire master plan. Don't try to just put parts of it out incrementally and pull it back. And most of these, as you know, have been pulled back. Now, another issue that has occurred that has caused problems in the neighborhood is that Gardner's Bay has already started work on this project. Now, that's not appropriate. They need to do that after you guys approve it. There is a big hole. They've dug the hole for the cistern. I keep getting complaints from my neighbors about all of this. They've done other work with electric, etc. Someone should go out there and take a look. There's a sense of, I don't know, presumptuousness, a little bit of hubris maybe. Let's do things in the proper order, the proper process. Now, my most important point, and I know I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again if we have another meeting, is that I'm not an expert. Some of this sounds great. Some of it could be really good. A lot of it seemed not so much on point to the actual cistern itself, but to other good things that they should do as a good neighbor on Shelter Island. But what we really need is an independent hydrologist that the town engages but is paid for by the club. They are comfortable that what they're doing is totally appropriate. They shouldn't have any worry that an independent hydrologist is going to come forth and say, hey, yeah, what they're doing makes sense. It's a good irrigation system. It's better than what was there. It's better than what you could do in other capacities. But it shouldn't come from their consultant. Their consultant is being paid to do what they want. It should come from an independent voice. So the final point I'll make on this is that in law, there is a concept called strict scrutiny. And I think that the town, in looking at what Gardeners Bay is going to put forward now and in the future should look to something that's somewhat analogous to strict scrutiny, which is what they are saying, is what they are asking, compelling for Shelter Island, not for them as a club, but for the island itself. The club itself serves a limited population, and as I understand it, that population every year continues to grow more to those off island than those on island. It doesn't produce a lot of value to the island. I'm not saying it shouldn't exist, please do not misunderstand me. But if it's going to do something that presents some type of a risk to our aquifer, to the quality of the water, or to the potential salt intrusion in our neighborhood, then it's got to be a compelling reason to approve. It can't just be, oh, it's good for them. It's got to be something compelling. And the only way to know that is to come back to what I had said previously. We need an independent hydrologist. I thank you for your time.
Counselor, you did a good job.
I'm a retired attorney. I'm no longer a lawyer.
Is there anyone else? Stephen Jacobs?
Good evening, everybody. It's late. Amber, I hope you're feeling better soon. And Ben, welcome to the neighborhood. You've given a nice presentation. And I think some of the neighbors might look forward to actually getting together with you and trying to see if we can talk a little bit of this out. Just three brief points. One, in our letters, we requested some documents. The club's response was go with building department, do this, do that. To expedite the process, and I assume you want to try to move this forward as quickly as possible, I would urge you just simply give Bill the documents. We all know how to foil for documents, but that takes time and creates burdens on town clerk and other town employees. So I would suggest you just give us what we've been asking for. Secondly, I've heard now twice, because I listened to your WAC presentation, that there aren't plans or drawings that clearly identify what the irrigation was in 2003. But that's not an answer. It's really up to the club. If they don't have plans, they should come up with something else. And obviously, Dave Ruby just referred to some photographs or diagrams or whatever that need to be looked at. But when you're asking for something as important from the town, it behooves the applicant to show that the applicant has complied with the law, and what it's proposing would comply with the law. Obviously, this all predates your.
Or otherwise you lose the microphone and no one can hear you.
I'm sorry. I appreciate that history predates Ben's arrival, but it is what it is. The final thing I want to emphasize is that one of the concerns expressed in our initial letter was that the mechanisms to capture or divert rainwater from the aquifer raised a bunch of questions. It was helpful to hear, and hear again tonight, that is no longer part of the application. But I think it deserves mention that it's just put aside for the moment. And if I heard correctly, according to my notes of the presentation before the WAC, Ben said something very close to, we don't have the funding for collection, that's why we're taking it off. So without question, the cistern is the tip of the iceberg. Collection is probably maybe just a little bit underwater, but the whole Megillah here really is a much broader expansion plan that would involve reactivating the application of the DEC for an additional 6 million gallons and inevitably going before the town board to seek an amendment to the irrigation provisions of the town code. So once the town board is finished with its review and additional input from us, and I think it may not have gotten input from the town engineer. I think there are some other things that are missing. If at the end of the day, the town board concludes that in current or revised form, this application should be approved, I would urge very strongly that it make clear that in doing so, it is not greenlighting or giving the club any comfort that the rest of the iceberg is going to be looked favorably on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak? Since I don't see any more hands, does anyone at the table have any questions, comments? No? Okay. I would like to adjourn this meeting. We're still waiting on reports from other people, from Grocer, et cetera. So I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Good night.
John.
All right, now we're gonna close the public hearings and go back into the work session. It's a town meeting. Thank you. It is so late.
I know. Your brain is still functioning.
You snacks. I'm just waiting for the room to quiet down so we can keep going. Thank you. You guys can take it outside. We still have a meeting to do. We're still in the middle of a meeting. Thank you. All right, so back into the meeting. We have 3 resolutions. One is to increase the membership of the planning board, and then the other 2 are to fill those vacancies after the Secretary of State adopts this local law. So it won't take effect immediately. Those appointments would take effect later after the local law has been adopted. Is everybody comfortable and wants to move forward with these resolutions?
Yeah.
Did you say 3? Only the 2 appointments?
It's 3 resolutions, but it's 2 appointments. So it's the resolution creating the expansion and then the 2 appointments.
Thank you.
Are we comfortable doing these tonight?
Yes.
I am.
I'll read the first one. Whereas a public hearing was held on Monday, February 24th, 2025, for any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled a local law to increase membership of a planning board. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby adopt local law number 1-2025 and total local law to increase membership of planning board. Section 1, legislative intent. It is the intent of this local law to increase the membership of the planning board from 5 members to 7 members. Section 2, authority. This local law is adopted pursuant to the authority granted by local law 271, which expressly authorizes the town board to increase a 5-member planning board to 7 members. Section 3, planning board membership increased. The membership of the planning board is hereby increased from 5 members to 7 members. Section 4, severability. If any clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law or the application thereof to any person, firm, or corporation or circumstance shall be adjusted in any court of competent jurisdiction to be invalid or unconstitutional, such order or judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder thereof, and shall be confined in its operation to the clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law, or in its application of the person, individual, firm, or corporation, or circumstance directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment or order shall be rendered. Section 5, effective date. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
We continue reading. Whereas a vacancy exists on the planning board, and whereas the town board has advertised for and interviewed applicants now, therefore, be it resolved that Gregory Cranford is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the planning board for a term to expire on December 31st, 2030. Be it further resolved that said term will be in effect when local law number 1-2025 is filed with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Whereas a vacancy exists on the planning board, and whereas the town board has advertised for and interviewed applicants, now therefore be it resolved that David Kriegel is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the planning board for a term to expire on December 31st, 2031. Be it further resolved that said term will be in effect when local law number 1-2025 is filed with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I make a motion that we close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
You sure you want to do that?
Yes, I do. Thank you, guys.
Motion to adjourn this town board meeting?
No, but does any member of the public have comment? So, do we typically do that at the end? Yeah, I feel like I missed that. But I also see no hands, so I think we can close the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
See you tomorrow.
Oh,